Hello and welcome to All About Kids. Today we're at the Barnes Noble in Edina. I'm Wendy Woodfill with the Hennepin County Library System, and with me today is author Gary Paulsen, who is visiting the Twin City area as part of his book tour for his latest book. Welcome, Gary.
Nice to be here.
Nice to be here. You have written more than 130 books. Right?
Yeah, 160 now, I think.
160. Okay, my information's a little low. Sorry about that. And you've won lots and lots of awards. I know you've received the 3 Newbery Honor Awards, and in 1997 you won the Margaret A. Edwards Award for lifetime contribution in writing books for teens.
I did. I was very honored. Very honored.
Of all the awards that you've won, which one is the most special to you?
The thing that happens with the first Newbery Honor was astonishing to me. I had no idea. It just explodes your life. I really didn't know. I didn't understand what happened. And in a sense, that was probably the most special. It just, nothing's been the same since then. But by the same token, I get hundreds of fan letters a day, and I answer them, and they're wonderful. And they have become an award of a kind. You know, they really are. They're I know that's kind of hokey, but I don't mean it that way. They're wonderful. They're really great.
Is there one book that's really special to you that you wrote?
Well, there's several. I know that it's a cliche to say the last book. Soldier's Heart is my favorite book, right?
Right. Yeah.
But Hatchet, of course. Dog Song was the first honor book. Hatchet was a phenomena, still is. And Brian's Winter, which was an alternate sequel to Hatchet the River, all of those books have been phenomenally successful, not just in royalties or numbers, but in the impact. I hate that word, but the effect they've had on young people. Yeah. It's amazing, absolutely amazing to me. It's way beyond anything I would have planned. You know?
It must have had an impact on your life too, though.
Enormous, enormous. I suddenly have tax problems. No, but you know what I mean. To go from living in 20 years in true poverty, making say less than $2,000 a year in writing, to go from that to being, well off, or to being a successful person is a very strange bounce. It happened literally in fact, the first royalty check I got, I'd never gotten one before Dog Song. I'd never gotten a royalty check, ever, of any kind. I got a royalty check, and I thought it was a mistake. I called the publisher, and I said, there's been some mistake here.
Oh, that's great. Good story. You have a wonderful gift of storytelling. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I'm Swede, Dane, and Norwegian, and it might be a Scandinavian genetic thing. My grandmother was a great storyteller, and certainly all my uncles would. They loved to sit and tell stories, and perhaps that's part of it. The other part is almost my entire life I've been insecure, and I mean, I have 2 Iditarods, sailed across the Pacific, but I really am, and still. And I think that it's a defense mechanism. Humor and to tell stories like that is kind of a mechanism.
Are all your characters based on real people?
Certainly most. I use a phrase in research that there's no substitute for personal inspection at 0 altitude. And like the Culpeppers, a lot of that is my kid. Amos is me and my kid mixed. Soldier's Heart was a real person. Charlie Goddard was a real person who lied about his age when he was 15 and joined the 1st Minnesota Volunteers. Night John was based on real people. I mean, I compressed them, and in that case, and had many different men become one, and many different people, but they were real things that happened to real people. So yeah, I guess most of them are based on real things, real people. Changing all the names and dates, of course, to protect the innocent.
You seem very comfortable writing for both children and adults, and in many distinct voices too. Is it easy or hard for you to change from age levels or from different genres? I
kind of don't change. I used to say that it was fruitless, artistically fruitless, to write for adults, because adults have they're locked in their lives, in divorces, cars, payments, what. But young people are still fresh and accept new ideas, and I still believe that to some degree. But having said that, there are things I want to write about that you can't write about for children. Some of my childhood I can't write about for children. It was too rough. And so I write those as adult books, but I don't use a different style so much. I use a different style, like, say, for Night John. or a different style for this book in the sense that it's a Civil War writing kind of. You don't have a Civil War soldier saying "gee" or "cool" or, you know, that kind of thing.
There's a real honesty that comes through all of your books too, you know, and they seem very, very real, no matter what you're writing about.
Well, thank you. I'm glad, but I think it's inherent in the subject. If you do accurate research or try to do this personal inspection at zero altitude, the honesty just occurs. I had a high compliment last night at a signing. I got out of the Army in '62 and didn't have to do a nom. A guy came through last night who was a nom and had read this book, and he thanked me for the honesty about combat in this book. And to me, I was worried about guys who, you know, had been in combat because I didn't want to affect them wrong.
In addition to your paperback series, you've had 3 new books published this year, 3 children's books. First one was My Life in Dog Years, which is autobiographical and very endearing. And then Tranzall Saga, which is a science fiction adventure. And then Soldier's Heart, which we've mentioned before. Could we just take a few minutes to talk about each of those 3 books?
Sure.
Okay. How did you come to write My Life in Dog Years?
I owe a great deal to dogs and kids. I owe my life, my career. And dogs saved my life in several times. A lead dog, Cookie, that I had, literally pulled me out of bad ice, woke up a dog team and pulled me onto ice and saved me when I was drowning. It occurred to me after thinking about these things, the first dog I had was in the Philippines when I was 7 years old. And in a way, she saved my life. Her name was Snowball. And it occurred to me after a while that really my life was in a series of dogs' lives. Snowball was there for a while, and a Cocker Spaniel for a while, and a dog that saved me when I was a street kid. He kind of became a bodyguard, if you will. Although if I didn't feed him, I think he would have punched my ticket as well. He was pretty growly. And I just thought it was a neat measurement of my life. Dogs have been such a wonder to. They are. I don't have sled dogs anymore because my heart went going bad. But what I do is I go to the dog pound, and I say, "Give me the next dog you're going to whack. He just got lucky," and I don't ask what it is. So they come out with the dog that they were going to kill next. So right now I got 3 Chihuahuas, a Terrier, a Basset, and 2 Border Collies. So I got 7 dogs, but I just don't have sled dogs anymore.
Because I was going to ask you how you filled that void when you stopped raising sled dogs, but obviously you found a way to fill it.
Well, 2 things happened. One is I had done dogs 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 8 years up here in Minnesota, up by Bemidji. And suddenly, literally, like on a Wednesday, I went to the doctor, went to Fargo to the hospital, angiogram, you got heart disease, that's it, no more dogs. So a friend came and got all my dogs. He's running them. I mean, he's still running their children. And I had this 20-hour hole, and I dropped writing in the hole. I filled it with writing. So I still have dogs, but the time that I used to spend running dogs and feeding dogs and taking care of dogs, I mean, I had 91 dogs at the height of this thing. That now I use that for writing. And that's why I do so many books.
Well, that's great. It's lucky for us you do. And the next one is the Tranzol Saga, which is a science fiction adventure. Is that a departure for you?
I got another one coming out.
Oh, great.
In a couple of years, called the White Fox Chronicles. Yeah, it is a departure, but it's fun in the sense that I'd like to do more of these kind of saga books that relate to fantasy worlds or fantasy elements. When I was a kid up in Thief River Falls, actually, I ran into Edgar Rice Burroughs' books. Not Tarzan. He hated Tarzan. He just there's a wonderful story about him and Tarzan that's I won't go into. Well, he had Tarzan serialized in magazines, and he got sick. He got sick of writing them. You know, and what he really was a science fiction writer. And I started reading his books and fell in love with it as a child. And I'd forgotten that. I'd actually at one point said I didn't like science fiction. But I decided that it is a neat area, that young people really like to read it. Now, the story about Burroughs was apparently he had at the end of one of his serials in a magazine, it might have been Saturday Evening Post or somewhere, he had Tarzan in a pit full of snakes and sharpened sticks and a lion and all this stuff was going to kill him. And in the next issue came out, instead of detailing, he just said, having gotten out of the pit, Tarzan, you know, and I guess people were furious. They wanted, they had all these things. They wrote in, they wanted how he got out of the pit and what he had to rewrite a thing and a blurb and put in there. But at a certain level, I think kids really appreciate the ability to just go into a fantasy world.
To escape from their lives. Yeah.
So I'll do maybe one a year, every other year maybe.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you have the storyline for White Fox Chronicles?
It's done.
Oh, it's done.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's done. It's just kind of sitting in a box, and a producer just bought it for movie rights. So we'll see what happens.
Great, great. Oh, we'd like to see more. And then the third one is Soldier's Heart, which you mentioned is based on a true character, Charlie Goddard, who did lie about his age to get into the Civil War. How did you come to learn about Charlie?
I was doing research for the Nightjohn books.
Oh.
And part of the research for the Nightjohn books, which is about a slave girl learning to read before the Civil War, but part of it goes into the Civil War. The second book in the series, called Sarnie, is about the Civil War, some of it. And I decided to do more reading about the Civil War. And while I was doing that, I hit Charlie. I ran into Charlie. That was one element in it. And I thought Charlie would make a good story. God, that sounds inane. This kid enlisted and it destroyed him. That's important, I think. I don't mean to sound inane about what happened to him. But I didn't think of it as a book right then. It was here. I just filed it away. And then I got out in '62 in the Army. I had friends who stayed in and died in Nam. And some years ago, I went to the wall in Washington. It was very strange because I went down there at 4 in the morning and swore I would not break. I swore I'd be alone and I wouldn't be affected by it. And I was on my knees crying. It's hard to talk about it even.
Yeah.
I was fine. I saw the name of this one guy, New Stewart. I saw this name and what a waste. What a waste. What a damn waste.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was part of it. That was part of it. The fact that all war is a waste and all these things. And the third thing is the book's dedicated to a man named Mike McGee, who's a dear friend of mine. He served 2 terms in Nam as a captain in the Rangers. And he has some problems. And Mike and I spent some time sailing. I had an old sailboat I fixed up. We sailed up the west coast to Alaska and then came on the outside passage, and we talked a lot. And he would not talk about specific things so much, but just in general. And I was writing this book, thinking about writing this book when that was occurring. And that's why I dedicated the book to him. But it also became part of why I wrote the book, was that I don't think people, especially young people, young meaning school kids, but also up to maybe 30, they don't have a clue as to what really happened to those guys. Spielberg's got a new film out now. It's just incredible. Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I couldn't even move when it was done. I just sat there. But it's the same thing. It's the same concept in a sense. Trying to show what it's really like for people who really have to go through that. And that's what this is. Charlie, he got out. He was wounded at Gettysburg. They fixed him out. He fought again. He fought the whole war and then got out and died soon after here of stress disorder. In Vietnam, they call it post-traumatic stress disorder. In the Second World War, it was battle fatigue. In the First World War, it was shell shock. But in the Civil War, if a man was ruined by war or by the army, he was said to have a soldier's heart, that he could not be normal again. He could never be normal. That's where the title came from.
It's just an incredibly moving and I think a very personal story too. It seems like it's it's really from your heart too that you're writing.
In the sense that I wrote it, but it's really, those things happened. Charlie went, he really went through those things, you know, and maybe a lot more. That's not in the book, that, who knows the things that he had to see and do that he didn't write about or didn't tell people about.
Yeah. A lot to think about.
Yeah, he's a neat guy.
Yeah, a lot to think about. Well, you mentioned the White Fox Chronicles. Do you have other things in the works that you'd like to
have another book in the Bryan series, the Hatchet books. Hatchet, I had always kind of planned on doing a sequel. This is kind of funny. And I got involved in other things. Life caught up with me, Newbery's caught up with me, things happened. And And I put it aside, and I get maybe between 300 and 400 letters a day, fan letters, just overwhelming, and I answer them. But constantly, they want more Hatchet, they want more Brian, they want more Brian. So finally they would demand what would happen had he not gotten out? How could he survive the winter? So I wrote Brian's Winter as an answer to those fans. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of letters now. I mean, it's not just a few. This is every 3 days there's over 1,000 letters, you know. So I wrote the book, and then a thing happens when you've been in the bush. When I have 22,000 miles on sleds in the North Woods here in Canada and Alaska, plus sailboats on the Pacific alone. And the thing happens where you have trouble being with people. It's not that you dislike people, it's just that it's close. Cities are too close and towns are too close. And I have to go back. I can come and do tours and I can meet people, and I really love people. But I also like to sit on a mountain somewhere with a dog. You know, I just can't. I have to be alone sometimes. In the solitude. And so I examined Brian and put him in the same situation, and he goes back. He has difficulty adapting and adjusting to people where he lives. And the book is called Brian's Return, and it'll be out in January.
Oh, great.
We're doing another tour in February, March for Brian's Return.
Good.
Excuse
Well,
me.
we have a lot of happy people to hear that.
I hope so. I hope so.
That's great. You do a lot of touring, you know, speaking of touring and balancing it with that time alone, but you do a lot of work with kids. Is interacting with your readers really important to
It
you?
is, although a great deal of it comes from mail, as I said. They're very honest, you know. And if they like a book, they tell you. If they don't like a book, they tell you.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. It's great. But it also helps to personal inspection at zero altitude. It helps to visit people, to talk to people too. It really does, to see what's going on. Things change. There are new concepts that come along. Computers have, just dramatically altered everything, you know, writing-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, but it also is an enormous new, you know, empty hole that needs to be filled with stories and different things. So I'm going to try stuff on the internet and like that, play around with it.
Are you gonna? Do you have a webpage?
Yes, I do. It's that whole thing. www.com, Gary Paulsen. Okay. Gary Paulsen, www.com. Okay.
Well, okay. Well, maybe we should put it on the screen so we get it.
Okay.
Because people will probably ask for it.
Okay.
Okay. We'll get it right.
Okay, please. I'm not really good at this. I've been so long now in the Pacific Ocean sailing that I haven't been able to keep up. But I'm not going to do that for a while now, so I'll have more time to keep up with these things. But I've never really done much on the internet. So it's a new experience.
Yeah, another new adventure.
Exactly.
A whole new world out there. That's great. I asked my daughter this morning, she's 6 1/2. I said, now, if you were going to interview an author, what would you ask? And she said, ask if writing is boring.
No. Well, I'll take that back. There was a time when I wrote a lot of westerns and like whodunit mysteries, you know, for adults. And after a while, I think, in a way, they get boring. Not the writing of them, but the westerns are like a 53,000-word haiku. You know, they have to be a certain way. Louis L'Amour established a pattern,
formula,
and you've got to stay with it. And that becomes boring. But not doing what I do now. I have such a great time that no, it's like a great romp. I really love it. I still, when a story works right, the hair goes up on my neck. It still does. I still get excited. It's a great feeling.
You must get just tons of a variety of questions from kids, just on every single subject.
Well, most of them are, where'd you get the idea for Hatchet, or do those things really happen to you? Which they do, most of them.
Yeah.
Now and then you get maybe 1 or 2% are kids who are in trouble. And I answer all the mail with kind of a letter that I have that I update all the time. And then kids who are in trouble, I write personally. If they've been abused, or there are things that happen, you know, in the world that are bad. And sometimes I'll write them personally, or try and get in touch with the counselor at the school, or you know, something like that. If I think they're in real danger. Not even 1%. I mean, it's not very many that get to that level.
Yeah.
A lot of them are hilarious. Hilarious. I mean, I wrote one years ago, I got to edit this, but I wrote one years ago about a tongue-in-cheek book about football called, I don't know, it's a picture book, and it was about sports, and it was just, it didn't really put it down, but it was just all pictures with phony captions, funny captions.
Okay.
And I got a letter from a kid, "Dear Mr. Paulsen, you don't know about football." And he was mad. He was really hot. He was, and the letter had been crumpled up, folded, and then he finally mailed it, So I just wrote in a letter back to him. I said, "Dear Billy," or whatever. I said, I know, I'm sorry. It was just a joke book, and I'm really, and I mean, within 4 days, I got a letter back from him again saying, "Thank you for not telling my parents. I was so worried you were going to tell my parents about my letter to you." He was just terrified. And he must have worried after he mailed it. Just really worried.
Yeah. Poor kid probably didn't sleep.
Oh no, he's just terrified.
Have the questions over the years changed, or the kids, do you see them asking the same things now as when you first started writing?
There seems to be a need for speed. Maybe things are much faster now. They learn quicker, they learn younger.
Sure.
They're exposed to, well, when you go into that, they're exposed to things at an earlier age because of television, because of the media.
Computers
so they know more. I get mail, a lot of fan mail from Japan. And there's an interesting difference between the letters that come from Japan. They're very polite, and they're in Japanese, and then there's a translation next to it, so you can see how it looks in English and Japanese. But they're very protected. They're very courteous and protected and gentle and not knowing. They're very smart, but they're not very up on current fast things that are happening.
Okay.
Whereas in America, they really are. They're, you have a hot car, do you like your Harley, that kind of thing. It's that. I mean, we were on a tour in Massachusetts just yesterday, day before yesterday, and a kid in the audience, this is great, this 12-year-old kid, I think I told you, but he said, "So, Mr. Paulsen, when you were young, did you have any luck with the ladies?" And when I was a boy, and I said, "Well, no, I didn't." I says, "How about you?" And he says, "I could do better." 12 years old. I could do better.
Well, wait a few years, please.
Yes.
Great. And this afternoon, you're working with kids too, is that right?
Here at the store for an hour, and then from here in 2 days, I think lacrosse, and then back home to work to write for a while, and then New York in October on business, and then the tour again in February, March.
Oh, I hope you come back here.
Oh, I will. Minnesota is, it's my home. I mean, I was born here in Minneapolis. I spent a lot of my life being raised up in the north here, Thief River and Bemidji and LaPorte and different places. I love it. It's so neat. I've been in the South Pacific. I sailed my boat down to Fiji. It's so neat to come back to Minnesota and hear people talk. It's just so nice. It's just the Minnesota slang. It's nice. It's nice to hear again.
No, well, we don't notice it.
You know what I mean, though.
I know, yeah.
It's just
sure.
no, it isn't that bad, but there's a little, like a dialect kind of, it's really nice. It's really nice, the accent.
Well, we miss you, and we're glad you're back.
I miss being here, actually.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah.
How many here have read Hatchet or know the book? All right. Maybe I'll just bring you up to date real quick on what I've been doing for the last few years, and then we'll answer questions. Is that all right? Okay. I'm Gary Paulsen. I'm a writer. I started writing when I was 28 years old. I had a rough childhood. My folks were drunks up in northern Minnesota, and I was a poor reader and a poor student. I flunked everything. I flunked the 9th grade. I had to take it over. I was a street kid. And I was on my way to maybe being in jail somewhere. And I went into a public library. It's in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. It's up north here, up by the Canadian border. I went into a public library one night to get warm. I was selling newspapers in bars. And I found that if I waited a little while, the drunks would get kind of juiced up and I could get a little more money for my papers. And I went in the library to get warm. And as I walked in the librarian saw me, and she probably knew who I was. I mean, the town only had 7,000 people. And she said, "Can I help you?" I said, "No, I just want to get warm." She said, "Would you like a library card?" And I said, "Sure." I was a smart aleck kid. And she handed me this card, and my name was on it. It was the most incredible thing. She just wrote my name on this card. Nobody ever gave me anything. I mean, I fought every night for the bigger kids would try to take the money I got sitting selling papers, and I had to fight every night for that. And here's my name on a card. Then she says, you want a book? And I says, yeah. So she gave me a book, and I was a poor reader. And I don't know how long it took, maybe 2 months to read that book. We lived in this grubby apartment. I'd sneak down the basement and get away from my folks, and I'd just sit down there and read. And I'd read like 2 pages and forget what I read, and I have to go back and reread those pages, and I can't even remember what the book was. I have no idea what the book was. And over the next couple of years, while my life was going in the toilet, she became a friend. And she got me to read. She really did. She at first was a book in 2 months, and a book a month, then a book in 3 weeks, and a book in 2 weeks, a book a week, 2 books a week. And I'd go in and I'd get a couple of adventure books, and then she'd schlep into Melville or Dickens. She was really great. Just slide in a classic. And it made everything I am. Everything I become comes from that time.
Are most of your stories true, or do you just kind of like make them up?
Most of what happens in them has happened to me, like Hatchet. I've been in 2 forced landings in bush planes, almost a crash with the dogs. And the plane that the dogs were in when they were taking me off the ice was the same plane, the 406 Cessna. It's the same plane Brian crashes in. I've hunted and trapped my whole life. I spent a lot of time in the woods, made my own weapons, hunted with bows that I made. The only 2 things in Hatchet that I did as research that didn't happen to me automatically. One is I started a fire with a hatchet. It took me about 4 hours. I had a rock in my yard, just pounding on this rock with this hatchet. And the other one is I ate a raw turtle egg, which was rank. I saw her lay the egg, and I knew they were fresh, so I just grabbed an egg, cleaned it, cut the top off, and swallowed it as quick as I could. And I got about here and just stopped. And I sat there, I thought about ice cream and steak, and it wouldn't work. I blew. I lost it all. But I think if you're starving, you could eat it. They're good food. I mean, skunks live on them. They love them. Yeah. Probably the favorite book that I've written, in a way, is Soldier's Heart, this new one, which is dedicated to a friend of mine who's a nun. And I love the way it's so real. I mean, Charlie really was a real person, this kid in the book. Hatchet is the most popular book so far. Hatchet and Brian's Winter book are the most popular, and I love them for that reason.
When was the last time you talked to your parents?
Both of my parents had passed away. I ran off I started running away when I was 15. And I got caught and came back. I ran off when I was 15 and a half, got caught at 15 and 3/4, 15 and 7/8. 16, I ran off with a carnival. 17, I forged my parents' signature on enlistment papers and joined the Army. And we were not close after that. And then my father and I got close they're both buried up by Newfold in Minnesota. My father and I got close the last 7 years of his life. And we became very close. And I miss him. He was a neat guy. And that was probably 9 years ago, 10 years ago that I talked to him the last time. That's a neat question.